year 2019 was a very interesting year for Oakland sports fans for a multitude of reasons. There was stuff on the field and off the field, and I think I even go as far as saying it was bittersweet when it was all said and done, as there was a lot of glory in this year for, as a fan of these four teams, for these teams and, just how the seasons went. But at the same time, the teams sort of failed and disappointed, us fans when it was all said and done. So I'm going to, today talk about the year 2019 and how, it was and how, what actually happened in this year, where, three of the four teams, the A's, Sharks, and Warriors made the playoffs. The Sharks one round away from the Stanley Cup final, actually 2 wins away. The Warriors obviously made the finals and lost, hence this hat. And then the Oakland A's, of course, made the wild card as, the second team, best team in the AL West. Raiders, of course, it's a different story, but they had tons of headlines about them. But let's go in order. Let's go A's first. So the Oakland A's in 2019, very impressive in the regular season. Now, of course, they didn't end up winning the AL West. I mean, when you have the Houston Astros, the team that went on to the World Series eventually in 2019, it's very difficult. But the A's won 97 wins, 65 losses, just under a 600 win percentage, and a very good Oakland A's team. Their stars were Matt Chapman. He was basically our best player that year. Chris Davis was still pretty good. Matt Olson, of course. I mean, I could go on. Mostly just our core of guys in that, year. It was a very, very good Oakland A's team. And the A's overall, kind of just snuck in the playoffs. They did qualify, of course, to have home field advantage in the wild card game. I actually attended that wild card game where the A's played the Tampa Bay Rays. But before they got there, they had a very solid season. And the future was looking bright. They had guys like AJ Puck and Jesus Luzardo that were looking promising for future seasons, possibly. Spoiler alert, they didn't really pan out, but they had a solid team with the likes of Matt Chapman on the infield, of course, Olson, the middle infield with Marcus Semien. Marcus Semien had a very good season that year. You had Jurickson Profar, who sort of just kind of came out of nowhere, but still had a pretty good season. And the A's were looking promising. That season they had a no-hitter from Mike Fiers. I could go on what happened that year. It was a very solid year for the A's. Now, we get to that wild card game. I wouldn't say the A's, I would say they snuck in the playoffs. I wouldn't say they were necessarily doubted, but it wasn't a sure thing that they were going to make the playoffs, even though they did make the postseason in 2018 as a wild card team too, but they were on the road that year. And so they were at home, like I mentioned earlier, against the Tampa Bay Rays. I attended that game, and the bittersweet part. I talked about the sweet part, the glory in the regular season. Now, the bitter part was that wild card game where the A's lost 5-1 against the Rays. And in that game, the A's just never had it from the start. They had Sean Manaea on the mound, who had a very good season. And it's disappointing because, football can relate to this. In baseball, the wild card is just a one and done game. And so for the A's to make it all this way and win 97 games, which isn't the best, but it's still pretty solid. I thought they could do a lot in the playoffs, and it didn't end up happening the way we wanted it to happen. The A's very much struggled against Tampa in that wild card game. I mean, the Rays were a very good team on the rise. I mean, they obviously went to the World Series the years after this, and the A's had some struggles in the regular season, and the Astros ended up going to the World Series and winning the American League, the team in our division. So that was sort of disappointing and sort of a gut punch for us A's fans. So that's really the A's side of things in 2019. Great regular season, and then disappointing playoff loss, one and done in the wild card game at home. A very highly attended Oakland A's game. I think 60,000 plus were there. I was there. It was amazing, but it's sort of just nostalgic and kind of a past memory at this point. Now we get into the second team, the Oakland Raiders. Bittersweet for sure. I think the 2019 Oakland Raiders is a full embodiment of the word bittersweet. It was bitter because it was their final season in Oakland ever. But it was also sweet because it was our 60th anniversary season. And also, the Raiders were looking promising heading into the preseason. They had Antonio Brown. And, you know, we all know what happened with Antonio Brown. That goes without saying. But they looked like they could be a sleeper team or dark horse in the playoffs. Now, unfortunately, it didn't pan out. Antonio Brown, he had his off the field and on the field issues. But the Raiders were looking promising with John Gruden. Just in his second year back in this stint with the Raiders had, you know, a very promising running back rookie, Josh Jacobs. I mean, this draft class was looking pretty solid. You had Max Crosby, a young guy on the rise. That these guys that, like I said, are being, you know, cherished now. So I think that year, 2019, the good thing about it was we were sort of developing guys. We had 2 Pro Bowlers. The Raiders did, Trent Brown and Rodney Hudson, neither of which are on the Raiders anymore. But, you know, it was depressing for me as a fan because it was the last year in Oakland. And, you know, I thought the Raiders, it would be great if they could just go out and win, you know, a playoff game or something in their last season in Oakland ever, you know, after so much history in this city. Now, unfortunately, the Raiders, they would, you know, they're obviously known to be a team that starts very good and then declines. So they started pretty good, pretty solid, but then lost many of their final games and finished with a 7-9 record. They lost their final ever game in Oakland against the Jacksonville Jaguars, a game I wish I attended. I still kick myself that I didn't go to any games this season, actually. I just never made it out to any of them, and it's sort of, I have a little bit of regret about that, I'll be honest, but yeah, they're gone, right? They're in Las Vegas now, but it was like this sort of thing where the whole city, you know, even if you were mad about the move, you were kind of just wanting the Raiders to do something in their final year in Oakland ever. I mean, it was sort of the thing that everyone wanted to see, and unfortunately didn't happen. The Raiders, you know, they had this cool season, 60th anniversary farewell thing to Oakland, but they underachieved on the field. Now, we go to our next team, the Warriors, reaching the 2019 NBA Finals against the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, the season was mostly, well, it started in 2018, but it was the 2019 Finals. The Warriors, very good in 2019. They had a 57-25 record, first in the West. And, you know, I still blame the fact that we lost the Finals on injuries. I don't think that's anything to really, you know, question. I think the fact that Kevin Durant was playing through an injury and had gotten injured against the Houston Rockets was sort of something that just made our team significantly worse. And right, we're playing a Raptors team, very hungry for a championship. They have Kawhi Leonard. And so the sweet part was, you know, getting to the finals and trying to win our third finals in a row with Kevin Durant leading the way. And of course, Steph Curry, you know, trying to eye his first finals MVP, and, you know, just the Warriors, right? I mean, you know, I feel like a lot of these Warrior seasons were similar in the sense that they had a goal in mind, but it was the first time that this core was playing a team that in the finals that wasn't the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it was unexpected. The Raptors showed out. I mean, I still think that the Raptors sort of got lucky with the injuries, I'll be honest. Dare I say it, but I think the Raptors, you know, the fact that Klay Thompson gets injured, you know, mid to late Game 6. And also, one other thing about 2019 Warriors, final season in Oakland, also final season at Oracle Arena. I mean, say what you say about, you know, Chase Center, how nice it is. I agree, it's a super nice arena. But the thing with Oracle, yeah, sure, it was pretty old. It was, you know, I think nearing 60 years old at that point. But Oracle Arena was the loudest arena in the NBA for a reason, because fans showed out to it. Fans loved going to games there. It was the final season there, and so similar to the Raiders, people wanted the Warriors to win a finals on home court to finish their Oakland tenure, right? They were going to move to San Francisco. The Chase Center was already, and they were, you know, doing a farewell tour to Oakland, more in a more respectful way than the Raiders did. They had, of course, the town, and they had special jerseys, and they really wanted to win this finals for Oakland. And KD, obviously, he was motivated, trying to win his third straight finals, but it just didn't happen. And the Warriors lost to the Raptors in 6 games, like I said. And everything kind of went downhill after that, obviously, until they won the finals in 2022. But besides the point, the Warriors in 2019, very close to getting it done, but they had to leave Oakland, which was kind of a gut punch to us fans, but also, you know, wasn't like a deal breaker. And also, of course, just losing a finals is not fun. Now we get into the final team. Of course, I support the NHL's San Jose Sharks, a team that was very successful in the 2019 season. Well, of course, the season started in 2018, but it spanned over 2019. The playoffs were in 2019. So very bittersweet season for us. This was, as I'm speaking right now, the last year that the Sharks were really in contention at all. This was our last good year. The Sharks were a very good team in 2019, finishing second overall in the Pacific, 46 wins overall. They had 101 points and were actually pretty close to getting first place in the division. The Calgary Flames got first. And so they had to deal with the Vegas Golden Knights in the first series, in the first round. We all know what happened. The most infamous Sharks playoff series ever. The Sharks go down 3-1 in the series against the Vegas Golden Knights. They fight their way back, and then we go to that roller coaster of emotions. Game 7 in San Jose. Obviously, the Sharks were the 2 seed and the Knights were the 3 seed. The Knights were still pretty new back. I mean, they're still new now, but they were even newer back then. I believe only in their second season. So the Vegas Golden Knights, of course, they dominated Game 7 from the get-go, right? They went up multiple goals. It was like 3-0, and then Joe Pavelski, the Sharks captain, could also be his final season as a Shark. He gets absolutely decked by the Knights, and as a result, the Sharks get a 5-minute major, and they absolutely come back. They score 4 goals on the power play. Now Vegas did score to tie it up, and then we go to overtime where Barclay Goodrow, former Shark now, but he was on the Sharks back then, gets the absolutely beautiful goal, probably the coolest goal in Sharks history, scoring against a heated rival, Vegas Golden Knights, and obviously very respected goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury. So yeah, Barclay Goodrow wins it for the Sharks, and then they would actually win their next series too. They played the Colorado Avalanche, also a 7-game series that they sort of weren't, at least in my eyes, expected to win. They definitely were a scrappy team. I mean, you had Joe Pavelski, you had Burns, you had Joe Thornton. This was a team that was trying to win a cup. They were doing all they could. And then we go to the Western Conference Finals after beating the Avalanche and the St. Louis Blues. We have to face them, and they're on a mission themselves. They went on to win the Stanley Cup final against the Bruins, and so we lost to them in 6 games. And so, that was sort of heartbreaking too, because the Sharks came all this way sort of in a miracle fashion. And yeah, they were a very good team in the regular season, but they weren't the best team by any means. I guess the Sharks, it kind of hurts a lot because they never won a Stanley Cup, and they've gotten so close. They have some of the most playoff victories, at least game by game, in the past like 20 or so years, but they just haven't won a Stanley Cup, and they've only been to 1. And so had they won those 2 extra games, granted they given that they lost in 6, they would have gone there. And so, yeah, that's the 4 teams that I support, how they did in 2019. It's just a very common theme. You have 2 teams that left Oakland altogether. And then you have 3 teams that had promising playoff potential and just couldn't capitalize, one of which, of course, the Warriors actually going to the finals, but the other 2, the A's and the Sharks, just could not capitalize. But that's going to do it, guys. 2019, interesting year. Let me know, if you remember anything from that year. Very memorable for me. I mean, it was only 3 years ago at this point, so still fresh in my mind. But yeah, it's going to do it, guys. Let me know your guys' thoughts. I'll see you guys later. Yeah, peace out.